Tennessee. My father was here serving as the chaplain at the prison prior to the prison that preceded Riverbend. And my mother came to join him and left a career in social work and teaching to join him. And we lived here for about a year and a half. Moved to Atlanta soon after that. And I grew up in Atlanta as a son of the church. Third generation United Methodist minister on my father's side, and fifth generation United Methodist minister on my mother's side. And I grew up in those kinds of churches where each and every day God was made relevant to the issues that we faced, the challenges that people faced, particularly black churches and those black congregations that cared about the world that we had to deal with. And so you didn't have to wonder whether God was real, and you didn't have to wonder whether the love of God was real. You felt it inside those caring communities. And so those are the kind of churches that shaped me. And in that regard, I became a son of the church, a deep love for the church, particularly the black church. I grew up in Atlanta, went on to go to Emory University, where I studied English literature and African American studies, double major. Went on to study at Gammon Theological Seminary at ITC, and studied biblical studies and theology, and finally completed my education here again in Nashville, where I took a PhD in religion at Vanderbilt. Along the way, I met some, and I was shaped by some significant faculty members, professors like Dr. Charles Cofer, who is considered the father of African American biblical studies, and Randall Bailey, who taught me, was my first Old Testament teacher at ITC. And here my advisor was Dr. Renita Weems, who directed my dissertation. Dr. Cofer taught me the importance of cultural context in the Bible, looking particularly at African context and finding not only myself, but my community in the text. And Randall Bailey taught us how to think critically about the problems we faced and how those problems were made relevant in our own interpretations. And finally, Dr. Renita Weems really took me and honed me and made me a scholar. Any faults I have are my own, but what I find that's good in my work has to do with the caliber of instruction I got from great professors. And so I'm grateful for my journey. Along the journey, what I found to be most important, not just the education that I got, but the experience I got along the way. I served as pastor of Old National United Methodist Church for several years in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was one of those congregations that accepted a young student pastor and taught me that while it was extraordinarily important that I studied hard, but it was also important that I took what I knew, and I knew, not only did I know the books, but I had to know the lives of the people. I had to understand where religion, if you will, where religion hit the ground. In other words, where the rubber met the road, and the kinds of difficulties that real people faced as they attempted to live faithful lives. And so I was blessed to be the pastor of that church for several years, where I really learned not only how to care for and lead a community, but I also learned why biblical interpretation is so important for our churches. I left there and served as the university chaplain at Clark Atlanta University for several years. And there I met some of the brightest and most inquisitive students who really pushed me to think not only outside of my education, but also to think outside of the confines of regular churches.
Very good. And of course, what we're going to, excuse me, doctor, what we're going to do is to take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back and complete some of the information that you're giving us now. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.